David is ready?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, hi everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Deputy Clerk, could we please have a roll call?
Sure. Trustee Eck,
Here.
Trustee Kennedy,
Present.
Trustee Metz,
Here.
Trustee O'Laughlin,
Here.
Trustee Donnersberger is absent, and Trustee Farrell Mayer is also absent.
Thank you, Lisa. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everybody, I am out of town for work, so that's why I am on speakerphone. We have agendas up in the front. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I want to remind everybody that we are broadcasting this meeting on Comcast Channel 6 in Indian Head Park only, Facebook Live and YouTube, IHP TV, and of course we will have this posted on our website after a few days. First item on the agenda is the Mayor's Report. If anybody is interested in joining the Fire and Police Commission, please let me know, staff, or anybody on the village board. A Wolf Road update. Last month at the village board meeting, the board approved the amendment to the Intergovernment Agreement, or IGA, with some revisions. We are waiting to hear back from the county on the revisions that the village board approved. I expect that we will hear back from the county and have an agenda item on the village board agenda at the next meeting next month. For the master pedestrian and bicycle plan, there are three main areas in the village: Plainfield Road and Wolf Road. Both are county roads and both are in a phase 1 study. The county has stated that they will not be pursuing a 5-lane alternative for Plainfield Road or Wolf Road. And Joliet Road is a state road, and we're waiting for approval to begin phase 1 of a sidewalk along Joliet Road. The state budget has over $4,300,000 allocated to this project. Still okay hearing me?
They're nodding yes.
Thank you. For the November employee anniversaries, Officer Chris Gardner is celebrating 24 years of service with the village. Village goals. Every year, the village board works to establish a few village goals. On the list so far for the village goals, we have 6, and these are kind of short summaries, and there are estimates with each item. I'll read through these. There may be others, and trustees, please let me know your additions to the list if you have any. As we work through the budget, we will get the amount of dollars that we expect to have that we could spend on village goals so that we know how much we could look at. First one is Black Hawk Park improvements. Could be a sports court, better landscaping, a dog run that's estimated at $200,000. Second one is a comprehensive review of the zoning code and land use plan, and that's estimated at $100,000. License plate reader cameras for intersection surveillance, that's estimated to be $100,000. And a reminder, the village board has approved, and we have purchased 4 cameras that we're testing. So the $100,000 would be X number of more cameras, roughly 15 or 17. And with any of these goals, if the board approves it, we would work to get better numbers than these estimates. The fourth goal on the potential list is a new electronic sign for the village, $50,000. The fifth is savings for potential Wolf Road landscaping. It's set at $1 million. And the budget that we're in right now, we have earmarked $80,000 for Wolf Road landscaping, if it gets to that point. And the last one is triangle facade improvements, estimated at $350,000. And as a note, we have a couple changes to the agenda. One of our consent agenda items, D, appointment of Barbara Lucente to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 3-year term commencing February 1st, 2023, has been requested to be pulled from the consent agenda. And new business item B, ordinance 2023-02, a variance for 111 Acacia Drive emergency generator, has been pulled from the agenda at the request of the 111 Acacia Association. With that, we move to public comments. John, if you could please help and call on anybody that is interested in making a public comment. Thank you.
Does anybody have any public comments? If so, please come to the podium. Your Honor, we have no takers.
Okay. Maybe I need to go out of town more often. First item is the consent agenda. Would somebody like to make a motion again that we're removing item D, the appointment of Barbara Lucente to the Planning and Zoning Commission?
So moved.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Brenda. Any questions or comments?
Would you like a financial report, Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Trustee Metz.
Okay. For the month ending December 2022, we started with cash on hand at $2.657 million. Total for all warrants was $737,000. Total revenues of $416,000, and ending bank balance of $2.3 million. I do want to comment that property taxes are still coming in. They were delayed for the fall, and we should be getting the majority of those in by the end of this month. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Chris. Any other questions or comments? I'm not hearing any. Deputy Clerk, could we please have a roll call vote?
Trustee Eck?
Aye.
Trustee O'Laughlin?
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy?
Aye.
Trustee Metz?
Aye.
And Trustees Donnersberger and Farrell Mayor are absent.
All right, that has been approved. Thank you. Would somebody like to make a motion for item D?
I'll make that motion. That's for the appointment to the Planning and Zoning Committee, Commission.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Brenda. Charlie, since you had asked this to be pulled, I'll let you ask or make comments or whatever you want to do.
I wanted to ask John, I understand that there was an interview process that took place in regards to this position. Could you describe a little bit the nature of the interview, how long it lasted, what kind of questions were asked?
Yes. So the interview typically lasts 20 minutes to a half an hour. At the interview is the Planning and Zoning Chair, Noreen Costello, the Planning and Zoning Liaison from the Board, Rita Farrell Mayer, the Mayor, myself, and Assistant Village Administrator Farini. We will typically, there's a form that the people fill out, and then we ask them about their interest in the village, why this committee in particular, and we just have a discussion about what they can bring to the village. We ask them what they like about the village and also what they don't like about the village. So it's a conversation that we have. As you know, sometimes we have a difficulty getting volunteers, so we try to make this a conversation to draw them in and have them further their interest in the village. So it's a pretty nice discussion. The individuals that we looked at this time are from different parts of the village, and we're trying now to get more representation from all parts of the village. So this person that's proposed lives in Indian Ridge. The Townhome Association, or the Townhome Association, just to the south of Village Hall. We find that a majority of our people right now are west of Wolf Road, and so we're trying to have greater representation throughout the village.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
No more questions.
Anybody else? Lisa, could we please have a roll call vote?
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Trustee O'Laughlin.
Aye.
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
And Trustees Donners Berger and Farrell Mayor are absent.
All right, thank you all. That has been approved. We move to the first item under new business in ordinance 2023-01, a variance for 6527 Howard. Would somebody make a motion?
I will. I make a motion to pass ordinance 2023-1, an ordinance allowing for a variation for a garage at 6527 Howard.
A second.
Andy, you want to chat about that a little bit?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Yes, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I seconded.
Thank you. Andy, is this you?
Yes, Mayor, it is. David, will you pull up the first picture? Yes, there we are. So, Miss Michelle Joseph is with us tonight. She is petitioning for a variance to construct a new attached garage to her home. Her home is at 6527 Howard Avenue, and she needs a variance because, due to the placement of the home, it being in the very center of the lot, it very much limits the buildable area. As you can see on the photo on the TV, that shaded area is all that she has to build without having to get a variance. The Planning and Zoning Commission has talked at length about this, and then also, in general, the idea that there are probably homes in the village that should probably be zoned R2 that are zoned R1. That's something that we'll be looking at more village-wide, but in this particular case, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously 5-0 to recommend approval. Staff is also recommending approval. You have in your packets schematics of what the layout for the building plans would look like. Even with the construction of the garage would still be 30 feet away from the front yard property line, 55 feet away from the front yard street, and 43 feet away from the side home property line. And so that's pretty much all I have. Michelle is here too if she wants to put in anything, or if board members have any questions. And that's all I got. Andy, I have a couple questions. I'm sorry, did you say it's zoned R1 and it should be R2, or do I have that backwards? No, you're right. So and this is something we're going to be studying quite a bit more, but there are parts of the village that are zoned R1, and realistically should probably be zoned R2 based on the size of the lot, things of that nature. And so that is one consideration for why the variance should be granted. Another one is also the unique placement of the home in the center of the lot. Is there currently garage on the property? No, there is no garage on the property. Have we seen schematics with buildable area because it's almost laughable. I mean, there's no buildable area. We've seen things like this before. Oh yeah, it's pretty common.
And we've allowed it in the past? I mean,
Allowed the variance?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. I mean, yeah, there's. So some further history, we did annex this area with the houses already there. So they were pre-existing houses.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I don't hear any. Lisa, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Trustee O'Laughlin.
Aye.
And trustees Farrell, Mayor, and Donnersberger are absent.
Thank you. That's been approved. Again, reminder, the new business item B, the variance for the 111 Acacia Drive emergency generator has been pulled from the agenda. On to item C, ordinance 2023-03, a variance at 6506 Cherokee Drive for emergency generator. Would somebody like to make a motion for that?
I make a motion to pass based ordinance 2023-03, an ordinance allowing for a variation for a generator at 6506 Cherokee Drive.
I'll second.
Thank you, Charlie, and that was Chris.
Yes, it was.
Andy?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So Mr. and Mrs. Dill are petitioning for a variation to install a generator in their side yard property. There on the TVs, you can see an aerial photo with the arrow pointing to roughly where the generator would be. It's right next to an existing air conditioning unit. And so the background on this is that the generator was installed without approval from the village. And so due to that, the general policy of the administration is that we don't recommend approval in cases in which the generator or in which anything is installed without getting approval from the village. But the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of it due to the fact that the homeowner has paid a fine ticket for the violation, and also due to the fact that the generator placement on the side yard is probably the ideal location in that it's farthest away from the other homes and it's the most heavily screened area. And with that, if you have any questions for me, I'll take them, and I believe the homeowner and the contractor and her contractor are here as well.
So we're.
Any other comment?
Yeah, I drove by and looked, and the generator's hidden, or it's out of view pretty nicely with the landscaping around it. The most logical place for the generator at that house is right where they put it. If it goes in the back of the house, it would be very close to the house that's on the adjacent street. So, I'd recommend that we go ahead and approve this. I understand that they received a fine from our adjudicator, and also their permit fee will be double, and I guess that's their penalty for doing this without getting permits first or a variance first. So I'm all in favor of approving this.
Thank you, Chris. Any other comments, questions? Don't hear any. Lisa, could we please have a roll call vote?
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Trustee O'Laughlin.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
And trustees Donnersberger and Farrell, Mayor are absent.
Thank you all. That has been approved. The next 5 items on the agenda are not votes, but discussion and information and updates. John, do you have the next ordinance?
Andy will taking the commercial signage.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm just getting organized here. All right, so this is another thing that the Planning and Zoning Commission has been working on over the last couple of months, and this is something that actually first started at the Economic Development Committee last year as part of discussions around facade improvement at the Triangle, and due to the fact that the signage code regulations are within the zoning code. That's why it goes through planning and zoning, requires a public hearing, as any text amendment to the zoning code would require. And the discussion revolved around what are our regulations currently and what do we want them to be. And we looked at both sizing and type of lighting and illumination of lighting. So you have in front of you 2 memos. One about illumination regulations and one about signage size regulations. I'll start with the signage size regulations. We do have size standards on the books right now. But after some more investigation and discussion with our plan review consultant, our building consultant, we kind of have a loophole in the language. Now, the current regulation is based upon the surface area it's based upon the number of linear feet in the frontage of a lot. But in the case of a shopping mall, the frontage of the lot is the entire building. So what we did was the proposed language is mirrored off of language from that other municipalities use. It's pretty standard, Darien, Western Springs, other towns in the area. And so the proposed regulations would base it upon the business storefront and just clarify that so that we don't have a loophole that you can put up any kind of giant sign. And so that's the main thing about the signage size regulations. And then we also looked at illumination regulations, and the recommendations that the commission came up with is to have an illumination standard that illuminated signs shall not produce more than 350 lumens 4 feet from the sign. This is based upon the regulations that other municipalities have. It seems pretty standard to make that regulation based upon 4 feet from the sign. And the number that the commission's kind of narrowed in on was 350 lumens, which is a number slightly above what Western Springs has, but lower than what Burr Ridge and Countryside have. And because the concern there is to make sure that light pollution is not causing a nuisance for the homes, especially the homes on Osceola, and then also homes like the Wolf Road condo buildings and other residential areas that face the Indian Head Plaza. The other regulations regarding lighting is to have that illuminated signs should not be hung or placed inside the window. I think the commission kind of felt that it's a little tacky sometimes if you have a bunch of flashing signs hanging from a window. And so that's the next one too, no flashing signs or no neon lights. And so those are four that the commission liked and that are pretty common in other municipalities as well. And staff did a lot of research on how are illumination standards enforced in other towns. And from what we found, there's not a lot of experience in the area enforcing these things or the issues coming up. They have the standards on the books, but my counterparts that I've spoken to, it's never actually come up for enforcement. Now, so I sat down with their building consultant and we thought about what is the best way to ensure compliance with the illumination lumen standard. And so what we propose is that from now on, when a sign permit comes in application, that we would require the applicant to let us know what the lumens are. And it would be signed off and approved based upon the lumens being within the village code. And then once the sign's installed, if any issues come up, we can send a code enforcement official out there to measure the lumens and deal with it that way. So those are our proposed regulations right now regarding the signage size and the illumination standards. And I can take any questions or direction from the board.
Andy, I've got a couple.
Sure.
You mentioned the signage and the triangle. It would be interesting if you could point out a couple of the signs that are there already and what the illums are on those. Since we're not taking a final vote, this would give us an opportunity to drive by and say, okay, we're looking at such and such a sign, and that's X number of illums, and if we're looking at this sign, this one exceeds it by X, Y, or Z. I know we've all talked about the smoke shop as being kind of bright and long, but there's others out there that seem to be quite a bit softer. So I would have an interest in just measuring a few of them and saying, here's what the measures are, at such and such a time, whether it's a triangle or, along the strip
Sure.
where Walgreens is.
Yeah, I'll speak with our code enforcement official and see if he can go out there and measure it.
That'd be great.
That would bring home whether we're talking about 350 or I see LaGrange and Hinsdale are slightly over 500, but their signs might be facing in different directions too. So, and that was a consideration that you'd mentioned early on. Thank you.
Andy, a couple of questions. This is pertaining to anything on, say, a door or glass window storefront. What are the rules above the storefront?
This is regarding like the both in the window, but also the main above sign too.
Both. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Thank you for clarifying. Kind of piggybacking on what Trustee Eck just said, do we also have a inventory on anybody that has neon signs now? Because I feel like there's a good handful already, open, that might say open or different things. Are we any neon sign?
So I think what you're referring to, I wouldn't call a neon sign. I think, but that they could be considered a hanging or flashing sign, and or flashing lights in the window, things like that. So there are businesses now that do have that.
And per what we're talking about here, they would all have to be removed.
I think that might be somewhat of a question for Pat about what we are legally allowed to have them do at this point.
I mean, because number 4, it says no neon lights, no exposed neon or other gas tube signs shall be permitted. I feel like there's a couple businesses that might just have a small open sign that is a neon sign.
So
that
yes.
technically would fall under this. in my
Right, so
opinion.
you would want to have if those signs were permitted by the village initially, then we would want to have some sort of amortization provision in this ordinance whereby they would be removed over a certain period of time so that they would have an opportunity to realize the investment that they made in that sign when it was legal. So I think we could work with Andy on seeing what that universe of signs would look like and then draft appropriate language to account for any of those that would need to be amortized out.
So again, based on what Trustee Eck just said, getting an inventory of those signs, what businesses, what they look like, for us to also have a chance to look and review.
Yeah, because otherwise, without that amortization, they're going to be considered legal nonconforming, and I think the goal here is to remove them ultimately, so the way to do that would be through that amortization.
Okay.
And of course, you can always say, we want to allow open sign, but we don't want to allow these other signs, something like that too. But yes, sorry. to interrupt.
No, I was just interested, how do we, so Public Works, I'm assuming, has a way to measure lumens?
Yeah, so we have an old one. We're going to buy a new one. There is a device. Basically, you hold it up, and then it can measure the amount of lumens.
Okay, thank you.
Do people consider neon signs to be tacky or unacceptable?
Some people do.
I guess I've never looked at them that way, and so that takes me by surprise that we would consider limiting those or eliminating them. Just
It's a
personal
fair point.
preference.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Comment?
Yeah, kind of a comment, Tom. So based on what Trustee Metz just said, would we look to handle somebody that faces north on the triangle towards houses differently than somebody that's, say, on the east side? Like, I'm just picking somebody out and saying Capri to go. That's facing a golf course. Who sees it? Who cares if it's a neon sign, right? It's not facing anybody's home or being disturbing. So do we look at not only if it's a neon sign, but where it is, where it's located, where it's facing, as opposed to just blanket across the board?
There is always bleed even from Capri to go. There's bleed going north and south. So that is something that we need to be concerned about.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? If you think of any after the meeting, you can always get them to Andy. And Andy, the plan is to bring this back next month. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other Questions or comments? Move along to item E, street signs.
That is me.
John?
Yes, so, David, if you could pull up the first of the slides, please. So for some time, we've been talking about replacing the street signs in the village, and the main reason is they are not compliant with the manual on uniform traffic control devices. The signs we have, the wood signs, they're quaint, and they really identify who we are as a community, and I really like them a lot, but they are a maintenance nightmare, and they're not compliant with current traffic codes. So we really want to improve the safety in the village, the visibility of signs, and so we're moving forward with this project. What we're trying to do is we want to whittle this down to several examples and then have the board give us guidance and end up with, I think, 3 options, and then we will put this on our website as a poll, and we will also be doing smoke signals edition, asking for people to give us their comments so we can have community input on this. The signs really reflect kind of who we are, and it's change, and we really want to solicit people's input on this because it's a big deal. So the first option that we have is the sign itself. If we can go back to the first slide. So we have over here, if you look to my left, we have the traditional white on brown sign. That's similar to our wood sign, but it's metal, it's highly reflective, and it has our logo adjacent to the sign name. Kind of identifies who we are, so you know when you hit Indian Head Park. There's also a white sign, black on white, also with our logo on the side. Staff feels that this is kind of clean, somewhat of a modern look, but very identifiable and easy to read. And so if I'd like to have your thoughts on if you prefer the brown, the white on brown, or the black on white. And basically, I'm just going to go through the handout, and we're going to check it off, and then what we like here at the board level, we're going to put on the website and ask our residents for their opinion.
Well, I think that's a good idea to solicit views from the community as to what they would like. The last time that we discussed this, it was option D that seemed to get the attention of the board. I think everybody pretty much thought that that was the better alternative compared. I'm not sure what I don't recall what the alternative was, but
okay.
The board seemed to like the option D.
Okay, the option D, there are some issues with this
At the time.
The issue with option D is the hanging with the bracket and they swing. Very quickly, these signs will wear and they will fall off the swinging hinge. So they really should be attached to the sign post. So option D really, it looks nice, but that's also the wood pole, and those are subject to rot over time. So it does become a maintenance issue.
They're not all wood poles, though. In Ashbrook, they're concrete light poles.
Yes, but we're talking about for the rest of the village also.
Yeah, so I don't know that it was necessarily the board's favorite or not, but it was one of the first ones that we looked at because we tried to keep it close to what we have right now, right? Something that was not far off, but compliant. Now, I believe in that meeting, we also had our deputy chief step forward to say these are very bad from a police and fire and rescue standpoint of not being able to see one side sign because it's blocked by the other. So even though we might be in compliance based on reflectivity and size of lettering and things, we're possibly still have an issue of it not being completely visible to the first responders that we want visible to. So just a little FYI, sorry, John.
So if I can have your thoughts on the white on brown or the black on white and then we can move on to other options. There are literally thousands of options to look at, and we've looked at catalog upon catalog. We've spoken with Burr Ridge, Palos Park, surrounding communities. In the community I live in, we have the standard white on green street signs on nasty poles. So, and I think that maybe we could do a little bit better.
Yeah, David, if I can ask, can you go to option A, please? One thought that I had for the board, and please push back, is if we look at the different options, which I think there are 5, whittling it down to 3, but leaving both colors out there and letting the community also decide on the colors. Because they may say, hey, we love option A, but we want it white. So essentially giving them 3 options with 2 different color options. As a thought.
That is an option for us. Does the board want to go in that direction, that we leave the color selection as part of the poll?
Good suggestion,
Okay.
trustee.
Poll. Okay, moving on, post type. Again, we have a wide variety of posts. If we look at on the left, the Telspar, that is probably the cheapest option out there. And it just looks maybe not what we want for our community, especially on the main entryways to the community. We look at the fluted square or circular posts. Again, these are options. They're a little bit more expensive than the Telspar, but I think from how it looks in the village perspective, any of the fluted square or circle would be preferred to the Telspar.
Yeah, I myself, in that this is a one-time, because this is going to be around for a long time.
At least 25 years.
Exactly. And I think it's time that we can maybe dress up the community a little bit, and I believe it should be uniform throughout the whole community as far as the type of signs. And I myself, and that's just me, is the fluted or the circle, just to be a little bit more ornate and not so plain, but just to dress up the community a little bit.
So, Brenda, I agree with you. And when I saw these yesterday, when we were kind of putting this together, my thought was the fluted is more ornate. I believe it's also more expensive. So my first thought was this would be something that would be on Wolf Road, Plainfield Road, Joliet Road for people that are coming through our community to see, with the round inland, for lack of a better term. I think on a day-to-day basis, people driving up and down their streets are not going to notice what type of posts they have in their street sign after a while. So I thought more the ornate and something that looked better on the common shared roads with something a little bit less dressy interior, but still look nice, better than as John said, the Telspar. I think that's not going to fly at all, in my opinion.
Is the fluted in the circle, is it the same size? Because, I don't know. I'm one for uniform as far as when something happens within the village, and that because it seems like we're always segregated. Part of the village has this, part of the village has that, and I just think it'd be nice to be a little bit more uniform.
Well, I would say that if you look at option A, sorry, David, to keep having you jump around, this was something that would be the round kind of interior in through the community, where B would be, again, on Plainfield, Wolf Road, Willow Springs Road. It's got a fluted base at the bottom. At the top, it's a little bit more ornate. It's uniform from the standpoint of the main roads would have that type of sign, and everything interior a little bit more plain, because, again, the cost differential was, I think, well, it says here, $1,450, but we decided that we're probably adding $300 per sign based on current cost. So option B right now, you're looking at $1,450, $1,750, where interior would be 13. So there is a difference in cost, for sure. It was just my thoughts that I'm just sharing with.
Okay. We know the wooden signs would have a lot of maintenance costs associated with them. Would any of these post options, would one be more expensive than the other? Would a fluted be more difficult to maintain than the smooth one?
The only issue with maintenance with the signs is when we mow around them or weed whack around them, and that can be painted over. Over time with the wood, it does nick away. This would just be touching up the paint.
I'll mention one thing too. One concern that we talked about, Public Works has brought up, is if you go the more decorative route for eventual replacement, if one gets hit by a car or stuff like that, it can be harder to find a replacement. So one other thing we're recommending is when we do make the purchase to buy extra poles.
Just so we have them in stock the estimate is 20% more just to have in stock.
Can you do option D with the fluted? Does it have to be all wood? Can it be, I like the hanging signs. We have that now, and, is there a way that can be done? Doesn't necessarily have to be wood.
I think technically the answer could be yes, but again, this is, the other options are going to have little to no maintenance ongoing. This option is going to have maintenance because it's going to wear, it's going to swing in the wind. Holes are going to get bigger. Public Works was not in favor of this, and again, having the police saying that this is difficult for them, the way that it is presented to see the other side of the sign, it's an option, but I don't think it was in much favor. I originally liked this because, again, it was the closest that we can come to what we have currently. But we've had discussions since then to find out that it is probably not the best option for us for those reasons.
Well, as long as we include it in the survey.
Well, I think that's what we're trying to do, is narrow it down to 3, though, and we've got 5 right now.
We can get rid of E as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
But I'd like to have D in the survey.
Well, if we want to start giving fee, I would say A and B would definitely be on my list with the 2 different color choices.
Yeah, I'd go along with A, B, and D.
I go along with A and B.
Hold on.
Not a fan.
So I hear a couple for A and B. Any others?
D.
And then, Charlie, you were A and E, A and D.
A, B, and D for the 3.
A, B, D for Charlie, okay.
Trustee Kennedy was suggesting 3 in the survey. So I was looking to
Chris, haven't heard from you.
comply with that.
You have not. I'm going to be non-committal on this. We've talked about this so many times, and I've gone back and forth. The committee's gone back and forth. I'm going to leave it up to others. I've lost any objectivity on this.
So right now, Mayor, we have A and B consensus, so we need one more.
I mean, I like C, but
So that's C. John?
Oh, come on. Chris, have an opinion. It's tough. It's tough because, again, D was my first choice from the beginning because, again, it was as close as we can come to what we have right now. And what John started off, I love our street signs. I think it's very different than other communities. It says Indian Head Park to me. But when I have second in command in our police force saying it's not good, it's hard for me to lean that way. So, Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Well, you can
I'll-
have 4. You know, there's no reason why you have to have 3. You can have A, B, C, and D. Yeah.
Are we, let me ask the question this way. How does the board feel about so let me ask Brenda, because you brought it up a few times. You want the same post and sign everywhere?
I would, yes.
Okay. So my issue with C is it's the most expensive.
And as much as I like to save money, I would point out that this is going to be at least 25 years.
Yeah, true.
The other issue with C is, other than the cost, is the stop sign is probably too low. It's not recommended to have stop signs. And so that's another goal with this project, is to kind of consolidate our poles, to kind of remove some stop signs, combine street signs and stop signs where possible. And in the case of option C, due to the placement of the street signs, stop signs low enough that a biker can hit it, or a tall
Somebody
person
could walk into it. I mean, that's only a 6-foot-tall person. So, Andy, based on that, David, if you can pull up D for a second. D does not incorporate the stop sign at all. So, I'm trying to think. Would
Yeah,
that be more
that is another thing. A swinging sign like that. I don't know if you could design it in a way that you could combine the stop signs with it.
Do you have to?
We don't have
No.
to, but we think that for most of the village, having a combined street and stop sign is safer, because, and I actually toured the village, and I noticed that we always have the stop sign on the right as you know, you're driving, and then often the street sign is on the left. And I was surprised at that, because you just gave me a surprised look. And but that's the case, especially in Old Town and in 45 Acres. So sometimes it's where we have the street names is not uniform. Sometimes it's on the left.
I noticed that too, John. After the meeting yesterday, driving out of here, just in Acacia, it was the same. They were opposite, if I remember correctly, so.
And the existing stop signs have the U-channel post, the Telspar posts. And we think that removing the Telspar from our inventory will make the village a little cleaner looking.
You still don't have an opinion, Trustee Metz?
You really want me to commit?
So-
I don't like the Admiral's cap on option A. Otherwise it's fine. Option B is fine. I don't like option C.
Okay, then I'll say D.
D for, okay.
I'm fine with that.
Your A, B, and D also?
Yes.
Oh, that's what I was.
John, it's a little hard for me to follow all of it. Do you have consensus or majority?
All right, so this is what I have so far. So trustees, please, if I miss you or have it wrong, please let me know. For option A, I have Trustee Kennedy, Trustee O'Loughlin, Trustee Metz without the Admiral hat, and Trustee Eck for option A. For option B, I have Trustee Kennedy and Trustee O'Loughlin.
And Eck.
And Eck, okay.
Did you have me on there too?
For B, no. Okay, that's A and B.
What?
For option C, I have Trustee O'Loughlin.
I don't like D.
Is the Admiral hat on option A totally off the table because we're picking between this sign and that sign, which are essentially the same, just different colors?
Correct.
So it's going to be one of these two signs. So the Admiral hat is, sorry that it's on there, but it's not an option, for lack of a better term.
Okay, good.
Right?
Okay, and for option D, I have Trustees Eck and Kennedy.
Put me on there, too. I said A, B, and D.
Okay. And trustee Eck for option E.
No.
Nope.
He doesn't like E. Thank
Okay,
you.
got it. All right, then I misheard you. Thank you for clarifying. And then the color brown under white or white and black,
Yeah.
we'll also put in the survey for the community.
So trustee Eck, just to clarify, and David, I'm sorry if you can bring up D for a second. Based on what we're talking about here, it would be hanging, but it would look like this or that. It wouldn't be what you see there without the logo and the size.
Yeah, it'd be with the logo. It's similar to the white
What you
one
have.
that
I just
there,
wanted to
only
make sure
it'd be,
that,
you know, I like the white on brown as opposed to the black on white, but we'll let the survey take a look.
Mm-hmm.
All this conversation is just in advance of survey design, right?
Correct.
yeah.
Okay.
So to help me, can you clarify what option D is in dog?
Option D was
I see it, but-
the wood post and the wood arms going off to the side, hanging from the two round holes drilled into the sign, swinging, similar to what we have now, Mayor?
Yeah, no, I see option D. I thought there were changes to that.
Well, I was just pointing out to trustee Eck that the sign that's represented in the option D is not what it would look like based on the two different options that we have out here as far as the sign goes. So I just wanted to clarify to him that it wouldn't look like what's in the picture.
Not as big.
Correct.
That's for Wolf Road or Joliet Road, right?
Well,
The side street?
not as big because it follows closer to what we have. You know, the dimensions, I don't know. It looks to me to be like 2.5 feet wide by 11 inches tall, where the sign to my left is more of a 6 to 2.5 feet. So it wouldn't be as tall. So in the picture right now, it's a closer representation to the size of the wood sign we have now. And I was just trying to point out that that's not really the option that's on the table.
And just to have a clear understanding, option D is the one that the police department is not in favor of.
And it's also the one that Public Works is not wild about because of the wood post.
Correct.
But it doesn't
Does it
have,
make-
but it doesn't have to be wood.
Knowing those two internal concerns by our staff.
Be post type. Can we change post type?
To me, what option D shows is that they're hanging similar to what we have now. And if they're hanging from wood, that's one thing. If they're hanging from metal, which is requiring less maintenance, you know, that could be the case as well.
John, can we, on option D, when the sign is hanging, could it be staggered to address the concern from the police
Yes,
officer?
yes.
So for any survey, we may need to,
I will stagger this picture.
we may edit option D with the metal sign, if that's what I'm hearing, and smaller lettering and, the changes. So may need a new option D image.
We will address that. As a side note, before I forget, on Wolf and Joliet roads where the traffic is, speed is greater, the signs will be greater to follow transportation rules, larger, so you can see it at a faster speed. These are all internal streets in the village, what you see here.
And then, John, like at the corner of Joliet and Willow Springs, we may not have control over that because it's a state intersection. Is that accurate?
The state does allow you to put up traffic signs, so we would check with them, but in general, yes, we could put up the sign that we want there.
but I think they have the bigger signs that are over the road with over by the lights, big green giant signs.
Okay. Oh, I was thinking something else. Sorry. Yes, we would defer to the state on that.
All right, any other questions, comments? John, do you have enough to go forward?
I do. We should have this up probably in a week and a half on the website.
And then the next issue is smoke signals, so it'll take at least a month or two
Month
to
and a half.
collect
Yep.
feedback. Is that fair?
That is fair.
Because we just had a smoke signals go out, right? We'd have to work on the next
Right.
edition. All right, the next item on the agenda, Village Hall sign.
This is more of a confirmation. We're looking for a new Village Hall sign in front of the Village Hall. And this is kind of the mock-up that we've gotten consensus on before, except adding 201 Acacia instead of just 201 at the bottom. This is something that we would have to go out for bid for, but we would be doing similar material to what we have at Arrowhead Point, the faux stone. This would be a one-sided sign. I believe that the speed in front of Village Hall is such that we don't have to have it perpendicular to Acacia Drive like we have at the Heritage Center. The sign is perpendicular to Wolf Road. So this would be what we would bid out. Just checking to see if you have any other comments or concerns. Lead time, we would put this out for bid in the next 2 weeks. Another 30 days for bidding, and then however long it would take to have it installed. So we're probably looking April, maybe May of next fiscal year.
And John, if I'm understanding right, we are trying to get the lettering to match the sign at Arrowhead Point.
Correct. Yes.
Has the dark brown background behind the lettering and the stone. So we wanted to look as close as possible to what's at Arrowhead Point. Is that correct?
Correct, because we have gotten extremely good positive feedback about the sign at Arrowhead Point.
May I mention something really quick? So just to clarify for the board, that sign right there, whatever we eventually get will probably not be 100% identical, because we can't use this image to go out to bid because this is from a specific quote, and so we don't want to use someone else's intellectual property, for lack of a better term, to go out to bid. So what we'll do is we'll in our RFP, we'll state, the sizes we want, the colors we want a planner, we want it to be the faux stone, we want the logo to be this size, but what we come back may not be 100% identical, but it should be pretty close.
Yep, thank you, Andy. That's a good point. So the verbal description will be as close as we can to this image. Is that fair?
Yes.
Any questions or comments from the board? All right, thank you. Moving on to the next discussion item, Trustee Metz, you wanted to bring up term limits, is that correct?
After that, yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. I know that the board addressed term limits quite a few years back. I think it's worth bringing up again. I'm in favor of term limits for our elected officials. Looking at, I would prefer two limits, or two terms to be the limit. And I just wonder how the rest of the board feels about that. We're missing a couple of board members tonight, so just interested to know what anybody else thinks. Personally, I witnessed our board in the past, and I remember previous board added up the number of years people were on the board, and it totaled somewhere over 100 years. We had some people that were on for over 20 years, and I think people get stagnant, they get complacent, and it's easy to do things because that's the way you've always done them and not because it's necessarily the best idea or the best way to do something. Other towns have term limits. Not all of them do. It's up to the individual towns to decide. And so I'm curious to know what everybody else thinks.
By chance, you know of any other towns, what their term limits are?
I know the village of Brookfield, I think it's only one I'm familiar with, and they have 2 term limits, 8 years total. Yeah, if anybody doesn't know, 4 years is a typical term for a trustee or an elected official in Indian Head Park, and most towns.
Do you feel consecutive or just 2 period? What's
Yes, I do feel 2 consecutive.
consecutive? So somebody could run, come off, come back again, and then do 2, so technically,
Yes.
okay. I have no issues with it, I don't think. I think the only issue is sometimes it's tough to get enough people to run. That, what do we do in that case? You know, do we have a fallback scenario?
Yeah, and I think that could be part of the problem too, is when you get people that are on for a really long time, it can be intimidating for other people to try to get involved, for them to run. So, yeah, that'd be exactly one of the reasons. Hopefully it would encourage, people wouldn't be as afraid to come or as intimidated and would be more willing to participate.
Sean, if nobody ran or not enough people ran, it would be like if somebody had to resign. The board would seek applications, have interviews, and then select somebody until the next election. They would serve until the next election.
But then the board is picking the candidate or the new trustee versus the people. And that,
Yeah.
where I would rather see the people voting the trustee in versus the board. I mean, I know there's emergencies where people do step
Sure.
down, et cetera, and then the board, we need to fill that vacancy until the next election. But I rather see the people vote. I would rather see the people vote for the trustees versus the board voting, if nobody was to run.
Does legal have any input as to what we could do per Trustee O'Loughlin's hesitation? And I agree that.
No, that's by statute. So
Okay.
especially as a non-home rule municipality, we're limited in terms of how those vacancies would be filled.
All right, I think that's 2. Charlie, are you going to comment?
I'm just listening. I think Chris has got a good idea.
I'm sorry, I didn't. It's what?
I think Mr. Metz, Trustee Metz has a good idea.
And I'll throw in my comment that I was on the board when we had the vote, and I believe I was the only one that voted for it, so I was for it then. And if there was a tie, I would vote to have it again. Okay, Chris, I think you got your answers. Anything else?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right, next item is discussion by Trustee Eck about investment policy and authorized depositors.
Thank you. At the last Finance Committee, of which Mr. Metz is chair, we discussed many things. One of the things that we also discussed was opportunities to increase interest income for the village. That was open with that. In that light, member Mr. Garzas, who's in the audience, myself and John DeRocher got together this week to talk about how we can go forward with a way to maximize interest income for the village. John indicated that there's new regulations that he's got to follow. He'll talk about that when I'm through here. Second is any new relationship any new depository relationship would require a vote by the board to allow that particular relationship, such as if we wanted to work with a different bank because they had, great rates. Also, we needed to know what the cash flow was likely to be for the next 12 to 18 months, and we've got, as Mr. Metz indicated, about $2.3 million in the bank right now, but we're going to be spending some of that on the water department, and so when are we going to need that money, and for how long are we going to do that? I understand we have an opportunity now with our current bank relationship, Wintrust, where it's possible to put money into a money market account at a rate now slightly over 4%, which would allow for interim investment of those funds until a longer-term program can be developed. I believe Mr. Droscher indicated that he wanted staff to look at that and come back to the board on next meeting with some specific recommendations in regards to relationships, terms, and perhaps the cash flow analysis over the next 12 to 18 months. John, did you want to add the comment in regards to the regulation too?
Right. Our investment policy follows the guidance of the state of Illinois. The rule is we look at security, how safe is the money that we put in the bank, liquidity, how fast can we get to it if we need it, and ultimately yield is the third one. We always want to make as much interest as possible, but we really, no community that I know of or in my career have we ever jeopardized the safety of the money that we have, to the point where if we have investments over $250,000 that are not covered with FDIC insurance, we have to have that money collateralized, and that is guaranteed by another bank, which usually results in a reduction in interest, but at the expense of security. So security is always the number one goal, and then so we might lose a little bit of interest. Oh well, we can go to bed at night knowing that our money is safe. The state of Illinois also has some regulations that banks have to provide us in order for us to have a relationship with them. It's pretty standard now. And then there are some nuances which I don't think will impact the village at all with where we invest our money, but we can't invest our money in Russia or Belarus. And that's two things I remember specifically from the statute. So we'll be working with the village attorney on this. You have it already in the draft ordinance or resolution, but whatever we do, wherever we want to place our money, we have to have your permission to do that so you know what's going on. I just can't call up Joe Blow's bank on the corner and shoot him money without your permission. And then they have to provide us certain documentation to guarantee the safety of the money. So that's kind of where we are right now. We will be doing an RFQ for banking services. We've been with Bank of Countryside for a very long time. They may be the best place to do business. Maybe not. But it's good to enter the market periodically. We did it right after I came to the village, and we stayed with Countryside, and it's time to do it again. So now that we're actually starting to make some interest, it's time to look.
Yeah, if you can get over 4% on $1 million, that's $40,000 that we can save the taxpayers just by wisely investing that money.
Yep.
That's all I had. I just let the board know that that we had an initial meeting on that, and that staff wants to take this another couple steps and come back with a specific proposal. I believe in the February meeting. Is that right, John? Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Charlie. Were there any comments or questions?
No, I think it's a great idea.
I just want to say I think what's most important is the safety of the funds. Over the the 40,000 might be very attractive, but if we risk village funds, it's not worth it. And tying up the funds could be a problem as well. Money market rates can be pretty good these days, and I mean personally, invest some money in an online bank, which gets 4% right now, and it has very good liquidity. I don't have to lock it in for any certain period of time. However, it can go down easily, just as well as it goes up. But it's safe and it's liquid. But those are my personal funds. Those aren't everybody's funds. I'm not representing 4,000 residents with what I do. So, yeah, we need more information, and I'm all for it if we can keep it safe and it doesn't jeopardize our situation at all.
I agree with you, Chris, and both of us being on the Finance Committee, and that I think we've always watched as far as the dollars go and making sure that we've handled things the way they should be handled, and we're making sure that they are safe and there's no liability in losing money. And that's so I'm been for this for a long time, and I'm really happy that we're trying to make a change here and to be able to make more funds for the village.
Charlie, I had one question. You mentioned money market at a 4% return. Has money market accounts ever went negative?
For negative interest, not that I'm aware, but you can certainly take it out of the account if rates start to drop. At the present time, John, I think you indicated that it was Wintrust had the money market at slightly over 4%.
Correct, and that's
time.
collateralized for us.
And that's collateralized, yeah.
Tom, I can speak to that. As board members and audience members may or may not know, I'm a financial planner by trade. I've been doing it for 23 years, so this is the world I live in every day. Interest has never gone negative, but in 2008, during the financial crisis, we did what was called break the buck. Money market rates have historically always been valued at $1 NAV, stands for net asset value. They went down to 99, 98, 97, as far as 95 cents on the dollar during that time, and those funds were frozen. Albeit it was an anomaly, clearly it's possible. So the point I'm making is I don't think it would happen, but it could, and I'm concerned that not losing necessarily value of the investment, the illiquidity potentially that could come from it. At that time, I had clients for months trying to get their cash, and they could not. And it was a very, very scary time. So I would be more than happy to give you some more insight on that. One other thought would be, John, you're correct on the $250,000 limit. But one thought would be, rather than going directly to a bank, to look at a financial institution that has access to multiple banks, you can then invest $1 million with them, and they can put it in 4 separate banks.
That's what we have right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
The CDARs that you had talked about, where banks Wintrust they introduced that to me 20 years ago.
Okay.
Where we have multiple banks, so the money is at individual banks, although it shows up as one account.
Right,
for us.
right. But you have
if we've got $2 million, we would need 8 relationships, theoretically.
No, you would need one relationship that could get you 8 deposits. So you could go to XYZ firm that deals with J.P. Morgan, Chase, MB Financial, go down the list and put 250 in each.
Yep.
Everything would be at one financial institution on paper.
Correct.
But the money would be held at the separate banks. And I would also suggest not going to the limit of 250. I would keep it under just
because.
Well,
because
the other side of it too is you have to look at, if you do CDs and money markets, some of those money markets may be invested in banks that you have CDs in that would put you over that $250 number. So there's definitely a lot of things that we have to be careful of here to not shoot ourselves for $40,000, shoot ourselves in the foot for $40,000 a year. It's just my point.
And that's also part of our audit. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, I don't hear any. We're going to move on to the reports. Start with the trustees. I'll start going around the room with Charlie.
You've had my report. Thank you very much.
Brenda?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Chris?
Finance Committee met last month, or when did we meet last? It was in December.
Yes.
Forget sometimes. Our next meeting will be January 24th at 6 p.m. Public is welcome to come to that. We actually had a few audience members at our last one. I think that was the first time in all my time here. So that was terrific. That's all I have.
And Sean?
Just keep a lookout. Hopefully, in the next week, I plan to get a date and an agenda out for our next tree and landscaping committee meeting in hopefully by the end of the month.
All right, thank you all. Village Attorney, any update?
No report, sir.
Thank you. Village Administrator?
Yes, at the January 24th Finance Committee, we're going to have a first look at the budget for the 23-24 fiscal year, which begins May 1st. And then at the February meeting of the board meeting, we have our first reading. That's a medium-level overview. March, we will have the public hearing and the full-blown budget at that time. And then at the April meeting, we will pass the budget. As you know, we are on the Budget Act. And so we have to have the budget passed by May 1st. Otherwise, we cannot spend money legally. So that's the budget timeframe. And stormwater complaints, we received a couple stormwater management complaints through our portal since the last month. Again, none of them are life-threatening nor property-threatening. They are more what we classify, the audience might disagree, but as nuisance complaints. But please, if you have a stormwater management issue in your yard or if you see one in the village, please go to our website. We have a special portal where you can register your complaint. Not only does staff get the complaint, but the board members receive it also. So please use that portal. And that is all.
And John, we have Public Works talk to every resident that submits an issue. Is that correct?
Everybody who submits an issue gets a visit from Public Works. Usually a positive visit. So we show up and we try to help out. And if you have an issue that we can handle at the staff level or give you direction, we will. Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant Village Administrator, Andy?
Yes, two quick things. One, voting for the fall photo contest ends on January 15th, so a couple more days. And so hopefully next month we'll have a nice new fall photo in our boardroom here. And then the winter photo contest is going on right now. Submissions will be accepted until March 10th. You can submit your photos by emailing the admin email on the village website or dropping off hard copies at Village Hall. And the other quick thing I have is we received the leaf quantity numbers for the leaf vacuuming program. This year, 119 tons of leaves were vacuumed as part of our leaf vacuuming program, which is up from 101 tons last year. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Department head reports. John, can you help with this? I can't see who is there.
We have the chief of police here. Public Works and Water are not, so it is up to chief of police.
Good evening. So, some good news, our Motorola cameras finally came in for the LPR system, but we're still waiting for our permits from IDOT, so we can't put them up on Joliet Road yet. Cook County will let us keep our LPR cameras on Wolf Road, but any new ones are going to have to be permitted eventually. So I guess they're looking at IDOT's way of doing things, and we're going to get stuck dealing with that headache also. My new officer, Mike Majewski, he's on midnight shift right now with Chris Gardner for his training officer. Chris reports that he's doing pretty good, and he's probably going to get cut loose in the next month or so once we really, nailed down that he knows what he's supposed to know. We just started working on the annual report. Hopefully we'll have that ready for May 1st for a review of last year's activity. We didn't do one last year. We didn't really have much to report from the COVID years, so that was behind the scenes there. Our Police and Fire Commission, we met last week. They're getting ready to, or they're preparing for the lateral list, which expires in February, I believe. So that gives us the ability to hire certified police officers who are experienced already, and that puts them on the street much quicker. We can also feed off of that list for our part-time officers, because right now we're down 8 officers. We're authorized for 15 officers, and we're down to 8. And the last one is, that was my last one. Oh, we do have a show tonight. You can hit it, sir. This is a screen. This is a screen that we get for our LPR camera through the Flock system. On that, on the left column is where we would select the type of vehicle if we're looking for a specific vehicle. Our cameras, or all the cameras around us. You really can't do a nationwide search because there's 15,000 cameras, and if you put in license plate 123, you're going to get every plate that has a 123 in it. So that is a little time consuming. So in this case, we did a sample of, we're just doing semi-trucks that are activated by our Indian Head Park cameras. The search now is then activated, and we're searching from January 1st to today's date. And that's the response we get back. We're 132 semi-trucks in this time period of, 11 days. And if we click on one of those individual pictures, you get the greater details of the vehicle itself. And then we can, if we're looking for a red truck or a maroon truck, whatever that might be, that's how we are able to identify a suspect vehicle that was involved in some type of crime. Any questions?
Yeah, 12 days, 132 semis. How many total license plates roughly out of, have any idea?
Different license plates?
Yeah.
Well,
total.
132 license plates at red.
No.
Oh, total?
Total, yeah.
Well, let me go back there.
This is along Wolf Road, is that right?
Wolf Road.
Just only Wolf Road? Yes. Okay.
If you have a minute, we can pull it back up. I know it's exciting material. Okay. To the board, we need faster laptops.
I tell you what, in order for the meeting, Your Honor, I suggest that maybe we just hang around after the board meeting, no discussion, and then the audience can have a look at it.
Fair enough.
I do have a question for clarification. On the agenda, it says Officer Gardner is celebrating 17 years. I think the mayor said 24 years. I'm just curious to know which one's accurate.
I think it's December of 15 he started. No, I'm sorry. December of 05, John?
Of 05, and then payroll has them starting January 2nd of 16. So
we didn't pay him for 11 years?
No, we didn't. He worked for free.
Yes.
Yeah.
Donation.
Yeah.
Okay. That was my only question there.
January of 2006, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Chief Koenig. And I believe that's it. With that, moving on to public comments.
Do we have anybody? Do we have anybody in the audience who'd like to speak? Your Honor, I have no takers on that.
I guess it's a good thing I'm not there. Thank you. Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 8:24 p.m.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sean and Brenda. Roll call vote.
Trustee Kennedy?
Aye.
Trustee O'Laughlin?
Aye.
Trustee Metz?
Aye.
And Trustee Eck?
Aye.
And Trustees Donnersberger and Farrell Mayer are absent.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Have a good evening, everybody.
Good night.